What's up, everybody? We're here to review the Ishin Mobula, or the Adam RC Mobula, depending on who you ask. Little FPV flying wing. Be this one right here. Pretty neat little thing, on the surface, first look. So my thoughts on it? There you go. No, but seriously, we're gonna show you some flight footage and how my two flights, I got two flights on it, how the two flights that I have on it went, and all the fun that ensued. So let's get on with that now. Alright, so to get started, we're just going to run through a quick list of the electronics. I have the FPV plug-and-play kit, which included the motor, speed controller, servos, a camera, which didn't work, which we'll explain later, and a video transmitter. Video transmitter is, I think it runs up to 500 milliwatts, a little small Adam RC unit. Seems to work pretty good. Came with a little linear dipole antenna, which I mounted and used, and I mean it got the job done for a couple of flights. I think it would work well. Seems to be fine. And apart from that, I installed a Matek F411 WSE and a Crossfire receiver. And I flew everything with a little 850 milliamp hour 4S LiPo. So the included camera was a Foxeer Razr Nano, which, as far as I can tell, based on all the retailers and my experience with this one, the input voltage range for it should be 4.5 to 7 volts. But there was no documentation or anything included with this kit, with the camera that came in this kit. It was just kind of threw in with the other parts. So the first thing I did, I ran to Foxeer's website, and you look on Foxeer's website and they say 4.5 to 17 volts, which to me implied that it would be safe on 4S LiPo. So I powered it off with the VBAT connector on the Matek flight controller board, which in my case is 4S. And the first time I plugged the battery in, and I did use a smoke stopper, it let the smoke out the camera. So the smoke stopper will stop any sharts or anything like that, but apparently if it's just an over voltage situation, outside of the voltage range, it didn't pull enough load to trip the smoke stopper, and it burned the camera up. So once I figured out what was going on there, I did send an email to Foxeer and suggest that they maybe correct that mistake on their website, and they did say that it was a typo and that they would get it corrected. But the last time I looked, as of right now, it's still there, so just keep an eye out for that. So I replaced it with a Foxeer, want to say a Monster Micro Pro, if I remember right. It's just one that I had in my parts bin that I'd reviewed some time ago. And I had it laying around, so I kind of carved out a little extra foam to make room for it, and I stuck that in there, and it worked fine. So that gets us to the flying. I got two flights on it. The first time I flew it, I just kind of flew around a little bit. It was pretty late in the day. I didn't really have time to do all the tuning and stuff like that. I just wanted to get the airplane in the air, see if it flew, get it back on the ground, and then we would do a proper maiden flight with some auto tuning and all that good stuff later. First flight went okay. I didn't really notice any bad habits with the airplane. It handled fine, it felt fine, it flew fine. Made a couple of high-speed runs with it. I think I hit like 90 miles an hour, which is pretty impressive for the little wing and how small the motor is, and just a little stock power system with a small battery. I was pretty happy with that, to be honest. When I landed it, I was kind of worried about the tip stall and everything, but it floated right in nicely. You can see it kind of settled in pretty slow. I was starting to change my mind and think that maybe the little wing didn't, it wasn't as evil as the reputation that precedes it. So that led us to a couple of days later when I got the next flight in. I was actually going to do some narrations, voiceover, and do an auto tune and stuff like that. So I took off, flew around a bit, and then when I started doing the auto tune, I was tuning the pitch axis first and just pulling the stick up and down, and the first thing I noticed, I didn't have the weird pitch coupling that I do with the Dart 250, which is running the same iNav5 firmware, so that kind of rules out any issues in the firmware, which I always expected it was, but it was seemingly fine with this one. So that means that I have an airframe issue with the Dart 250. But getting back on topic, this little Mobula wing here. So you can notice at this point here, as I'm doing the auto tune, the pitch axis, it rolls hard to the right, and I quickly recover it. It felt like a tip stall. It felt like it dropped the right wing. And it shouldn't, because I had enough power on and enough airspeed. It just, when I pulled the stick back, it dipped the right wing and it quickly recovered. And I thought, okay, that kind of felt odd, but whatever, let's keep going. And the next time it did it, it went straight into a flat spin and it would not recover. I was playing with the pitch, the roll and everything, trying to get it flying again, trying to push the nose down. It just wouldn't respond. And you notice it actually did it stopped its spin for a second or two a couple of times and started trying to fly, but it would immediately go right back into that flat spin. And it went down into the soybeans. And I had made it a point to stay relatively close to home and out over the soybeans, which, given all my the options surrounding, unless I landed it out on the runway in the mowed grass here in the yard, the next best option for being able to find the airplane was out over the soybeans. So I'd kind of planned for that, and that's why I was tuning out over the soybeans, just to have a better chance of lessening damage and finding the airplane. So at that point, we started looking for it. Now, it was late in the day, pretty late. I had maybe 30 minutes before it was going to be too dark to continue looking for it. So I hopped on the ATV and we rode out closest to it was. Now, I had my INAV telemetry script running, so I had my GPS coordinates from there. I'd snapped a picture of those on the radio before I turned it off to make sure I saved that. And I put that pinpoint on Google Maps and I just headed out in the field to that point. Now, I brought a flashlight with me because it was pretty late in the day and I expected to be out there until dark, and we were out there till after dark looking for it, and I just couldn't find it. And I actually brought the radio out with me too, hoping to pick up the airplane to link back to it once I got close enough. So I did lose the link, but for some reason I was never able to connect to the airplane. The Crossfire would never pick it up. I assumed that maybe the battery had been dislodged and disconnected or something, and that's kind of how I expected it to be disconnected when I found the airplane. But it wasn't. So we gave up that night, and the next morning I went out. I actually charged up my Mavic Air. We got it out. We flew quite a number of batteries, actually. I forget. We flew several hours just flying low, flying up and down the rows, and then I started flying up higher where I could look down and see between more of the rows as I made my passes. My dad even walked out and kind of walked around on foot a good bit while I was flying the Mavic Air, and he didn't find anything. I couldn't see anything from the air. We came back and reviewed the footage, in full resolution, and still couldn't spot anything. So I was starting to kind of give up at that point, thinking I might have to wait until the beans start dying off before they harvest them to be able to spot it then, for it to show up better. But as you can see, I took a few little panoramic shots before I put the Mavic Air up, kind of running some of the batteries down. There was plenty of rain in the area. We were actually surrounded by thunderstorms during all this. So I decided to go out one more time and just walk every row and kind of better my chances of finding it. So what I did, I went out to the GPS point, the last coordinates that I had for it, and it seemed to be, from what I could see in the video, it seemed to be traveling kind of in a northwest direction as it was going down. So I started there and I just started walking every row, just kind of walking up and down every row. And I found it literally about 20 feet from the GPS coordinates. It was all the way down on the ground, sitting on the dirt, down below 2 rows of the soybeans, or between 2 rows of soybeans, and that's why I couldn't see it from the air. I was kind of hoping it had kind of nested down in the top of the plants out there, but it had actually found its way down all the way to the ground and was between 2 rows, and there's no way I was going to spot it from the air. So, but we found it on foot. It didn't get rained on, but just staying out there overnight, it was out there about 20 hours, I think, before I found it. It already had a big ant nest started in it. The ants had moved in, had a bunch of eggs in there, and had to get all that out of it before I could pack it back out. But everything worked fine. There's no damage. There's no broken prop, not even a single scratch on the airplane. Everything worked fine, which is pretty surprising. The only casualty is the battery, because it did run it down. It stayed plugged in overnight. it may be able to be revived and brought back to life. I actually did put it on a charger and slow charged it back up to a storage voltage just to get it better its chances of being okay, but I'll mark that one as probably a poor battery, a bad battery, and not really use it. But yeah, so there ends the story of the Eachine Mobula. I doubt I'll ever fly it again. If I do, it'll be line of sight, not putting any of my FFE gear back in it. And definitely gonna stay over the flying field, my mowed grass right here in the yard. Maybe do some line of sight fun with it just to see if we can maybe tame it, make it fly better, but I doubt it. I don't really plan on that. But if you ever see it again, it'll be something like that. I'm just gonna strip all the gear out of it and move on. So now you know why I waited so long to build it, because it's kind of what I expected. So I guess don't buy it, and if you do, I told you so. That's my thoughts. So I guess that'll be the end of the video. So thank you for watching this one, and keep an eye out for what's to come. It'll be better flying airplanes than this one. Don't know. Weather's kind of poor right now, so we don't get to fly every day, but when we do, we'll try to make it interesting. So thank you for watching this video, and keep an eye out for what's to come.